Well, hello, good evening, and good evening. WeatherBrains episode number 575. This is for the 24th of January, the pre-show, the magical time of the show. This is where from time to time we share very boring personal stories, mildly humorous anecdotes, and say outrageous things. And I by myself, I feel so lonely.
Can you hear me, James?
Actually, the gang, they are all together, and it's going to be a weird show where we're going to have most of the folks with Tim Marshall live at a National Weather Association function. And Rick Smith, we are hoping, will join us from the AMS annual meeting in Seattle. So we are live. We are going live. We hope it all works. And in the television business, you never know. But I see the lovely Aubrey Urbanowitz is here. We are waiting for her audio and video to show. And it'll be so nice because I don't like talking to myself. Aubrey, can you hear me?
Can you hear me?
Hear you very nicely, but okay. I don't see you.
I am working on the camera.
Okay. Hey, we got half the battle.
Right.
So, yeah, we're going to be bringing in 2 live shots for this show here. So that'll be interesting. I think they have a fairly elaborate setup at the NWA function where we have our guest tonight. So hopefully that will work. And Rick was a little iffy, and I totally understand. I have been to an AMS annual meeting, and that thing is huge. And it's like nonstop, and there's just always something going on here. So if by chance he can't make it, we understand that. But Brian Peters is eating something. Looks like he's down there at the all-you-can-eat buffet.
Come on, man.
Can
you hear me?
Yes, we hear you loud and clear.
You know who this woman is here? She's accosting.
Brothers. You know, she's always wanted to get on WeatherBrains. Now she just horns in.
Yes.
This is great.
Say hello.
Hello.
She said hello.
Yes, this is great. She can't hear a word we're saying, so we could just say all kind of things about her.
He said we're saying all kinds of things about you.
So this is our weekend meteorologist, Aubrey.
Hello.
You're seeing there.
Hello.
She can't hear a word you're saying.
Hi.
Do you have earbuds?
Yeah, do you want me to pop in?
Well, pop in.
No, I'm kidding. I'm hungry.
She's hungry. She's leaving. She's hungry.
James, I did hot yoga for the first time today.
Oh, my.
Show title. See, we got a show title already. I did hot yoga today.
The room is heated to about like 110 degrees, and you do all these poses and sweat instantly.
So a normal day in Alabama.
Yes. Typical day in Alabama. 110 degrees and you do yoga.
Sounds like a live shot in Alabama.
Exactly.
It is. Hold on a second. I got to get the logistics going here. Okay.
Oh, hello, Brian.
Yeah, boy, we're seeing way too. Whoa.
Hello.
Wow.
Oh,
Whoa, wowzer.
I'm trying to look at the controls.
Wow.
You are.
All right. Yeah.
You were giving us a look at the controls.
Another show title. See, this is great. Why is it the best show titles always come when we're not actually doing the audio part of this show?
And I haven't even been drinking yet.
No. We haven't had a drop to drink.
Okay, we have 4 microphones, but we realized that the only camera is on my machine pointed at me, and I have to do the show notes. So
that's okay. You know, just remember this is mainly an audio show.
I know. Just remember, everybody out there in WeatherBrains TV viewing live, that you're looking at me, but there's going to be 4 of us here, me and 3 others.
Now is this the built-in camera that's on the computer? Or is this like a thing?
This is the built-in camera on the computer. I don't have one.
You can't move your.
No, I can't. Not without moving around the laptop, and I can't sit on the table.
See, what you need is one of these. I mean, I'll give you a tour of my room here, my closet here. I mean,
listen, Buster, I spent over $700 on all this audio equipment. I can't spend another $150 on a camera.
See, these cameras are cheap. I mean, so yeah, that's my door. I stick all my school ID stickers on there for some. I don't even know why I started doing that. Across the hall out there, that's the junk shelves. more junk shelves, and more junk. What can I say?
I know I need to decorate my office. I printed out a bunch of weather pictures from the area and stuff, and I need to make it pretty.
No, my this closet looks like a landfill. So no, we got to get Brian. You got to get one of these, man. There's the lights, man. Got the TV lights up there. All right, let's get this thing back up here. I don't want to be showing the same thing Brian was.
I'm trying to look over at the controls. Okay. Hey, Tim.
Aubrey, how in the world did Brian configure this where to look at the controls, we see his gut?
Thank you.
It was the goods.
You don't have your portable camera, do you?
All right.
Yeah. Whatever you want to.
So this should be fun.
Yeah, I have a funny feeling I'm going to wind up manually switching this on the Hangouts here.
Just gotta send me the invite. Yeah, it'd probably be easier now.
So,
Do you have an ear?
James, I had a nice snafu last night.
Uh-oh. What happened?
That happened.
Wait.
And I couldn't stop laughing. So what happened was we had a master control computer go down, and someone hit a button by accident at the 10. So all the video was being projected onto the green screen. So when I walked onto the wall to get ready for first weather, I walked in front of a board, and I was like, oh no. So then I started testing the camera, and I started sticking my hand in front of the camera to test it. And then when I hopped on, instead of weather computer, I got the anchor right behind me.
Wow. That's kind of awesome.
The
best parts, have you got video of this?
Oh, we have video. Yeah. And our sports guy ended up recording it, and he's going to be editing it. So
be sure and send that to me. I want the world to see this.
We could not stop laughing. I don't think I've laughed that hard in years.
That's awesome. And see, that's the one thing they're going to remember about that whole newscast. I mean,
we had so many viewers that were just thanking us for making them laugh. And Kyle's a new anchor, and him and I have really good on-air chemistry. And boy, we just could not stop. I was the little devil on his shoulder.
That's awesome. Just awesome. I got to get video of that. Okay, it is 8:29. We are moments away.
Oh, I see Bill.
So we have one camera here, and we have another camera here. I see some Beats headphones. This looks so fancy. Yeah, I think what's going to happen, the audio is going to be coming from Brian's computer. And what they need to do is set up a phone and join the Hangout on a phone from a distance, like a wide shot. And I can switch, the video from here. Not that I'm a video switcher by training, but I can be. And also, Rick might join us from Seattle at AMS. It is now 30 after. Welcome to our television viewers. We are in the midst of rigging up live shots this evening. One with Tim Marshall, engineer, meteorologist, storm chaser. And we have Kevin, KFDX Chanel number 3.
What's going on over there?
Hey, Kev.
Hey. Where's this video of you and your...
It apparently it has not been posted yet. I'm waiting on our sports editor to create it.
Got it.
So I guess the only person we have at AMS is Rick.
Where's Brian? He looks like he's in a police interrogation cell. Or
That's a show title.
Oh. So where's Bill? Bill's not at AMS?
We have seen more of Brian C. I mean, I'm just saying, I have.
There's your show title.
Yeah. So let me ask you this, Brian. Does anybody have a phone down there? We can rig up a live shot or a wide shot. We don't need the audio from the phone, just a phone with Hangouts on it. You can mount the phone kind of at a distance because we have a good looking shot. I see Mark Rose and Tim and Bill.
Yeah, and that's fine. And then me.
That's fine. Yeah, we'll just use that. That's cool. Well,
Okay.
I'll be a switcher here.
And
So they're all coming in on your audio, right?
Yes. So why are we getting? Okay. Oh, that was you, Bill. Can you do a test, please, on your microphone?
Testing 1, 2, 3.
Are you hearing Bill? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Tim.
Testing 1, 2, 3.
Okay.
Loud and clear.
Testing 1, 2, 3.
Loud and clear.
Okay.
Wow.
Great.
We have an audio engineer. It's the cleanest audio I've ever had in a live shot.
Yes, which is not a high bar.
Yeah,
Thank you. I
On
will
this
take
show-
that as a compliment.
on this show, that's a very good point. So let's get this thing going here. Let me turn on the recorders. And here we go in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. This is WeatherBrains episode number 575. WeatherBrains is the weekly show that's all about weather. 11 years and growing strong. This for January 24th, 2017. James Spann here. Thank you for taking the time to listen this week. We got some great material this week, a great guest, but I got to ask Kevin Selly a question. You, sir, were the mystery man last week. You sent this mysterious note, I'm working the morning shift.
I know. And let me tell you, the novelty of that wears off very quickly.
So you're the night guy. How does this happen?
Well, our weekend guy, Eric Janson, left about a month ago to go to another station, WLOX in Mississippi. And we were in the process of finding a new weekend person, and we've hired somebody, but he's not here yet. And our morning guy had to take a medical leave, for lack of a better term. So there was really no choice. He had to do it. And so that left me. and so the solution, thankfully, was the guy that I replaced, Skip McBride, who was here 32 years, agreed to come back and work a few days. And the path of least resistance was for me to go to the morning show and have him sit in the evening chair.
That makes sense. That's good. So how bad was it working the morning show? Again, the novelty wears off pretty quick.
Does it start at 4:30 or 5?
5 o'clock. It's just a tiny market. But it's not terrible. I was getting up at 2, and which I probably by the end of the time I could have pushed back a little bit. You never get used to doing that shift. I guess your body or your schedule adapts a little bit, but it was kind of a novelty. It was actually a little bit helpful for me because technically I'm the chief here and sort of responsible for the computers and the workflow and some of the things. So I learned a few things that were helpful. I think to the morning shift and things to the station in general. We're slated here in the next couple of months, hopefully, to be getting a new system. And I have avoided doing a lot of changes because the one we have here is pretty old and things are fairly entrenched and there's a lot of inertia. But I've avoided that because we've for a while been told we're going to get a new system and deadlines come and deadlines go and things like that. But it was helpful for me to kind of learn some of that, and I can prep for the next chapter, as it were, which is more than you asked for. The real answer was, mornings stink.
So Aubrey Urbanowitz, have you worked a morning shift lately?
No, not lately. But I can tell you where I was last Monday.
Where were you?
I was in Mexico.
Mexico.
Where? Acapulco?
Cancun.
Ooh,
I was soaking up. You can't tell I have a tan?
It's
You're
glowing.
kind of backlit.
But no morning show lately for me. Thank you. I would have to say, unless something drastic happens and maybe 2 people were sick, that would put me back in the mornings. But no, I hate it. Bear hates it.
I've worked one morning show, and I've been here more than 20 years. It
Count
was
yourself lucky.
brutal. I felt like I had been beat to a pulp after that. I mean, it was, and you know, the one here comes on like 4 a.m. or something. It, you know, just goes on and on. And like before you can even gather your thoughts, you got to do another hit. Got to hit in 20 seconds. Got to hit in 30 seconds. And it was like you're like a pinball in a pinball machine.
Yes.
What's stunning to me is we don't usually turn the TV on in the morning, and there are a couple of reasons for that. But for lack of a better term, the evolution of the network morning shows to me is kind of interesting. We're an NBC affiliate, so we have the Today Show, and you know, there's a fair amount of substance in that first hour, and then from there it just seems to sort of slide. And by the third hour, you're just kind of standing there going, "This is network television." I just don't understand.
Yeah, it's a different world. But enough of our banter about the negativity of working a morning shift. We have most of our folks gathered together in a place, and we're going to kind of let them run the show here. We're going to pitch to our live shot. Let me just say, Rick Smith is at the AMS in Seattle, the AMS annual meeting, and he said he would try to jump on, and if he can, we'll go live to Seattle to the AMS. But Brian Peters, you are anchoring our live coverage with our special guest this evening, so explain, where are you and why are you there and who's there?
Well, we had the NWA chapter, the Birmingham NWA chapter, National Weather Association chapter meeting here at the Vulcan on Red Mountain overlooking downtown Birmingham. And as our special guest for this meeting, we had Tim Marshall, who is a friend of mine from years and years ago. As a matter of fact, I can't remember when we first met, but I know it was in Fort Worth because I had Tim come and talk to the WCMs about storm surveys and wind damage and all that sort of stuff. And that was, gosh, when was I there? That was back in the early 80s, I think, as I recall. Wow. Or maybe it was mid 80s. So I've known Tim a long time. But we have him here. But Bill Murray is also here, and Mark Rose, our chapter president. I don't think Bill has a role in the NWA chapter right now. I mean, he kind of is in the background doing a lot of things, but he has.
Wait a minute, Bill's like the grand poobah of the weather the NWA nationally. I mean, he can't have some local job. He's kind of a big deal.
Yes,
I'm the ambassador from Norman.
Yes, and James, you have to be sure to point out that the NWA president-elect is Alan Seals from Mobile. So yes, the National Weather Association will continue to have a big Alabama contingent. I'm sure that Alan Seals is appointing everybody to high muckety-muck positions, as most president-elects do, right?
That's a show title.
Yeah.
Hey, we've got somebody else special here.
Oh, yes, and we have a recent retiree.
Good evening, everyone. What an honor it is to be sitting next to Tim Marshall, who's been a mentor of mine for a number of years, and had the privilege of being with him and spending some time, him teaching me how to do damage surveys, and I'm very grateful.
Awesome. Jim. He can't hear a word I'm saying. That's okay.
Yeah, Jim says that the checks haven't started coming from the government since his retirement yet. So you got him on the show until after the checks start coming.
All right. Well, Bill, bring in our guest, man. You take this show. Go.
Yeah, well, this whole shindig tonight is because of Mark Rose. Mark Rose is the local chapter of the Central Alabama NWA, and we've been for the past 4 or 5 years bringing in really big guests, and tonight is obviously one of the biggest ones we've ever had. Mark, talk for a second about the chapter and getting Tim to come all the way out here. I thought he was turning and running when he went to the restroom right here before 8:30, but he was just going to the bathroom. So I thought he was going to get out of here before the show started.
Yeah, Bill, this is kind of my second go around with the chapter. I was fortunate enough to be chapter president back in 2011 when we had the national meeting. We had their annual meeting here in Birmingham. That was an amazing experience for Birmingham and for all those folks here in the weather community, and to try it again. And because I had enjoyed it so much the first time, I thought, well, I'd come in again. And this again, just a organization. We just kind of get together, some casual meetings, and about 4 times.
Uh-oh, Brian muted. Brian, you're muted.
No, I didn't.
Now you're unmuted.
Okay. I didn't try to unmute.
Okay, go.
Go,
Mark.
All righty. But anyways, we just try to bring in a diverse array of speakers. And, this is actually the first time I've actually met Tim Herschel. I've heard about him. I've been Facebook friends with him for a while and seen some of the amazing videos and pictures he's posted and some of the storm chasing that he's been doing over the years. And I know was heavily involved with the enhanced Fujita scale that came out about 10 years ago. And so I thought, wow, this would be a really great guy to come in and talk to our folks here in Central Alabama.
So Mark, you also have a scholarship that the chapter does every year. So when will people need to apply for that?
Oh, and Brian has gone muted again. Now he's unmuted.
Okay. It's Google Plus is doing something on its own. I'm not sure what it's doing. That's all right. It's unmuted. Keep talking.
But anyways, we had a guy that just was in high school and had applied for South Alabama and was enrolled in a meteorology program. So he was lucky enough to get a $500 scholarship from us last year, and we'll be offering another one this year. Probably we're looking at applications starting probably around mid-April, I think, somewhere around once, because folks need to know whether or not they're going to be applying or enrolling for this will be for the fall of 2017. So we'll probably start open applications around April and probably in the I think usually it's mid-June, usually when we kind of cut things off. So that'll be coming out here in a couple months.
So Mark, we had an active weekend here in Alabama and in the Southeast, and we were kind of lucky because Mississippi got it on Saturday morning and then Georgia got it Saturday night. So, how many tornadoes do we have here in Central Alabama?
I'll tell you what, Bill, I was actually working the night shift during a lot of this, and I went on surveys yesterday. I was out for about 12 hours doing surveys with our science operation officer, Kevin Laws. And today I was, of course, with Tim. And so I haven't really had a chance to even go back and look and talk with our folks back at the office to really see how many tornadoes we had. I know we had, probably at least a dozen or more tornado tracks. So it's I haven't really had a chance to even, because I've just been so busy with everything the last couple of days. I didn't get a chance to go back and see what I know the Weather Service is posting, updating the information on their website as quickly as I can, because I know there were 3 survey teams out today doing more damage assessment, and there possibly, I guess there could be some more tomorrow, depending on how much was done today.
Well, we're so glad that you could join us tonight, Mark. Thanks for setting all this up. And of course, the reason we're here is Tim Marshall. Tim, you're a legend, and you need no introduction in our circles. So we're happy to have you in Birmingham without a disaster behind it.
First time, actually, without a disaster.
Can you name how many times you've been to Birmingham?
3.
For 98 and 2011, and
Right. There was one in between.
Yeah, 2008.
oh wow!
Yeah.
So you've had some experience here. You're like the Jim Cantori of Birmingham. We don't want to see you coming. So unless
Not
it's like
really, yeah.
tonight.
Well, in all due respect to Jim Cantori, he's there before the storm. I'm there after the storm.
So you have some chance of success if you're still there when you get there. At least you made it through the storm. But so you've had a fascinating life, Tim. Talk about how you got interested in meteorology.
I have always been interested in meteorology since I can remember. I was interested in science, but in particularly weather. I just loved to see the changes in the weather day to day. And my parents asked me what I wanted for Christmas, and I said a barometer. Doesn't every kid want a barometer for Christmas?
Sign me up, especially this last weekend with 29.20 inches of mercury here.
Yeah.
It's just been great.
I just got a kick out of seeing the changes in the weather. And then we got hit with a tornado. F4 tornado hit my hometown, Oaklawn, Illinois, back in 1967. And then I shifted my interest from just day-to-day weather changes to tornadoes. I was only 10 years old at the time, and I knew that I wanted to study tornadoes for the rest of my life, right then and there.
So now talk about the Oaklawn tornado, because that obviously was a very historic tornado for sure.
You don't think of tornadoes in the Chicago suburbs by any means. And this tornado went through Oaklawn, Evergreen Park, the south side of Chicago, and into Lake Michigan. It was a water spout. I mean, how many times have you heard of that happening? And the destruction was, I've never seen anything like it because I was 10 years old. And it was amazing to see. What is this thing that comes out of the sky and does this kind of destruction? My parents had no idea, other than it was some wind that rotates. But how does it occur? I had tons of questions to ask, 10-year-old science kid like me. So I had to learn on my own a lot. And I wrote to the local TV meteorologists, and they were kind enough to answer me back. And then there was Dr. Ted Fujita at the University of Chicago, and he was kind enough to send me all these beautiful color maps of all these tornado tracks in the area. And I hung them on my wall, and I was showing them at school, show and tell. So I got nicknamed Tornado Tim, and they just, what's the weather going to be like next week, Tim? That sort of thing. All those teachers would ask me. I just love weather. I love extremes of weather. Not only tornadoes, but then we got hit with the blizzard of 67. The snow piled up in drifts greater than the first story. So you open the front door, and it was nothing but a solid block of snow. And I had to get out of the house by climbing out the second story. I mean, it was fun for a kid.
So through all this time, and I mean, talk about the meteorology of that tornado for a second and the warning process, because it's obviously a lot different than today. Was there any warning in 1967 for that one?
And, we knew something was amiss that day from what I can recall being 10. There were warnings out that day, and we heard about the tornado that hit Belvedere, which was about 3:45, I believe. And Oakland didn't get hit until a little after 5. So we had some lead time on there. I know the sky got dark to the west, and I know there were warnings up, and we were all watching outside, the whole family. And all of a sudden, the wind and rain hit, and it was time to head to the cellar. So we went down and hid in the cellar. It was over and done with in a matter of just seconds, what it seemed like. We came up, and then we started hearing the sirens, and the sirens lasted all night long as rescue operations happened. I was outside the damaged track, fortunately, but some of my friends were not. And they were actually in the damaged track. I had a few friends of mine who didn't show up the next day in school.
So have you gone back and looked at that case study retrospectively? What makes it stand out meteorologically?
Well, it's a life moment for me. I mean, to me, who doesn't remember their first tornado getting hit? And it's like, that was something I wanted to study the rest of my life. And, you turn a tragedy like that into something that of curiosity, and there has to be a science behind tornadoes. I mean, I knew that. So I got in with the people who study tornadoes, and I've learned a tremendous amount. I've also learned that we need to learn more about tornadoes.
We're still learning.
We're still learning.
And will be for many, many centuries probably.
Yeah.
So you actually surveyed some of the 1974 super outbreak tracks, right? And sort of after the fact?
It is after the fact. I was still going to school at that time. This was, I believe, high school. And we took a summer vacation, or with a spring vacation. What does people do? What do people do when they're weather geeks and they take a spring vacation?
Like go to the NCDC, I bet.
That's right. That's exactly what we did. We went to the NCDC in Asheville, North Carolina. And on our way down, we stopped in Louisville and looked at the tracks from the 74 outbreak that happened back in April. So, yeah, I was like, that was what was phenomenal for us as we saw the destruction there by going on a spring break.
So were you already corresponding with Dr. Fujita back then?
I was, and he was kind enough to answer me back. It was really amazing because later on, he sent me his book called The Downburst, and I opened the first leaf, and it's signed by him. So, and it's just such a nice man to do that. I'm just a kid, and he was so nice. And in fact, in later life, I got to do my tornado research and go to severe storms conferences. And I'm up there presenting my talk, and who's in the front row? Dr. Fujita, listening to me.
Wow.
It was really amazing.
Hey, Bill.
Yes, go ahead.
Hey, Tim, this is Kevin in Wichita Falls. I have to go do a show here. I don't mean to jump in the middle, but I would love to hear, I don't want to hear the 2 or 3 biggest things you've seen. I want to know the 2 or 3 things that you're still to this day going, how did that happen with regard to damage surveys?
Well, we pretty much know everything there is to know about damage surveys. I mean, a tornado hits a building, it damages it or it doesn't. But I will say this, we do find some new oddities from once in a while. Like
Yes.
we had in the Dallas tornado of last, year ago, December, we had a fence post in a chain link fence picked up. So plucked it out of the ground, and separated it from the chain link fence, and then drove it back into the ground, top first.
Wow.
Say what?
It's
Ow.
it's sticking upside down.
It's upside down.
Planted back into the ground
With or without
the
the
ball of the concrete still there on the very top.
Those tell more of those. Those are those types of are amazing.
Yeah, this is the chicken in the drawer story. That flew in the, flew
What?
through the air. Any more oddities like that?
Well, sure. I mean, we had in the same tornado, we have a plastic chair that the kids sit in, little 1 or 2 year olds or whatever 3-year-olds sit in their little plastic play school type chair, and it was impaled in the side of a gable end, went right through the siding. The chair was still fine. Yeah, we could be easily sat in it by a kid, but it happens to be about 15 feet above the ground, impaled in the side of a house. So that was kind of interesting. And then back in the El Reno tornado, one of those 60-foot long props that you see from these wind farms was laying on top of the roof of a school, but it was only one. And I couldn't find out where the thing came from. Where the other two blades, and where's the turbine it came from? Couldn't find that. It turns out it was part of a display that was sitting across the parking lot. And the only way I found out about it was going to Google Earth, and there it is, a cradle sitting across in the parking lot. It wasn't anchored, and it got lifted up by the tornado and deposited on the roof. So, sometimes Google Earth is very helpful to us figuring out what happened. But there's oddities on just about every tornado, and we see some of the most bizarre things. It's hard to explain.
So now, Tim, tonight you talked about El Reno extensively. That's what your presentation was on. And you had a very close call in that tornado that killed some of our good friends that night.
Yes, and I'm not really happy that I got that close, but it was an example that showed how tornadoes can change direction, they can widen, and they can accelerate all within a matter of minutes. And you just can't be very close to them when they're doing things like that.
So any takeaways from that night for you personally as a chaser that were sort of an epiphany to you?
Well, try to, of course, have an escape route always, and keep your distance, and think about this, that there are some tornadoes that you cannot deploy on. And, I deploy instruments of a tornado sometimes. So it's like, there are some times that you can't do that. Also, although we all know that the best place to be when you're trying to film for the highest contrast is northeast of the tornado, sometimes that's not a good place. And you have to say, is it worth your life over some pretty pictures? I mean, it's time to get out of the way.
So how many tornadoes have you actually physically chased and seen, Tim, at this point?
I have not individually counted them, but I've guesstimated it's 300 to 400.
Wow. And how many damage surveys?
I have done over 100 damage surveys.
Whose audio? Mine?
It's going. Yeah, it's just us. We're hearing you without the benefit of the earphones. Okay. But you're fine. You're fine. The microphone's working fine.
Oh, the microphone's okay.
Perfect.
That's fine.
So, we talked tonight extensively about Tim and his team and what happened to them. Where were they in relation to you that night?
Well, at certain times, they were a mile south and a mile west of me. So, given the speed of the tornado, they were about a minute and a half or so behind me.
And so in that process, you said tonight they may have been ingested into the backside of the tornado.
Right. Where they were at the time, there was a subvortex or satellite vortex that came in from the northwest. And it looked like what happens from where they were, they actually went southeast towards the tornado.
Now, you were showing National Weather Service radar images tonight that, had the Nyquist problem very evident. Talk about that issue for a moment when you're looking at radar data, because you look at it and you see one thing, and that's not what's happening. When you see reds and greens, they're not going away and coming towards you like they should be, because it flips over the scale.
This is an unfortunate occurrence. Is what happens is the WSR radars peg at 70 knots. So what happens when you get a velocity greater than 70 knots is it folds over to the other scale. Well, when you're trying to talk about, reds away and greens toward, that doesn't work anymore. And you're folding over reds to greens again. And on the opposite side, you're folding greens to reds. So it's totally backwards now in a way. And unless you explain it and know what to look for and decipher it, that a folding situation going on here, it's very confusing. I'd love to see the scales broaden out more than just 70 knots.
So you were seeing inflow into that tornado that evening that was well over 70 knots.
Well, at the ground, we were seeing, I would say, about maybe 60, 70. But up aloft, the clouds are moving at very, very high speeds. They were moving over 100 knots.
And that produces that distinctive tail cloud. Is that what that was that you showed us on the pictures tonight?
It's a laminar band. It typically forms at the interface between the forward flank downdraft and the warm sector. And it's sort of like a root of a tree is the way I explain it. Very smooth, and it was moving at very high rates of speed into the north side of the updraft.
And so there were people, chasers, including our Megan Thomas tonight that was with Mississippi State, who said they were one of the teams that went south on US 81, including Mike Bettis from the Weather Channel. And then they ran into what? The forward flank downdraft of the storm? Was it actually the tornado?
Well, Mike Bettis ran into the tornado. But Megan, it sounds like maybe the rear flank downdraft came in around the south side.
So anything else, when you think about what you were thinking when you found out that he had passed away, because I was in New York and had watched all of this transpire on Friday night on the Weather Channel, and, got to Sunday brunch and heard the news that Tim had died, I could not have been more shocked. So what were you thinking when you heard that it was Tim that passed away?
Well, I'm still shocked. I cannot believe of anybody it would be him, because he preached safety almost always, and that we saw him. And so I've seen a lot of reckless chasers out there, and he was not one of them.
All right. So you've been on Oprah. What got you on Oprah, Tim?
I've been on Oprah twice, but it was kind of funny how it worked. The first time it was because of the Twister movie. And then the second time was because Nashville got hit with a tornado, and the Weather Service called me in to survey that. And it happened to hit the high school that Oprah had gone to. So she invited me back. But the Twister movie, we got involved with the Twister movie very early on. And what happened was I got called by Amblin Entertainment. I don't know who the heck is Amblin Entertainment? Who's this ET thing with a bicycle on it? What are you talking about? So they said they're going to make a movie about tornado chasers. Oh, great, fine. So they sent a scouting team over, and they looked at the van that Carson Eads has, and they said, "This is phenomenal. This is fantastic. They'd love to write this into the movie." I didn't realize at the time it was going to be the bad guys, but it was the
guys in black.
Yeah, the guys in black, But they love the van, and then they approached me to be the a technical advisor for the movie, to go ahead and advise them about what tornadoes do and what they don't do. So they don't want to have a blatant error in the movie and that sort of thing. Well, that all sounds great and dandy, but to me, they wanted me to leave work for 9 months and work on a movie. I couldn't really at that time leave work for 9 months unless I could talk my bosses into taking a leave of absence, but I'd have to have Amblin Entertainment not only pay for my salary, but a little bit more for, hazard pay or whatever you call it. We couldn't reach agreement, not even close. They wouldn't even come to like a third of what my salary was. They just said the honor was to work on a movie. That's the honor. Well,
that doesn't buy any hamburgers, though.
Yeah, honor's number 2 in my book. Number 1 is the money. And it turns out they weren't paying Helen Hunt and Bill Paxton very much money for the movie either.
Really?
Yeah, it was kind of a
going to Helen Hunt.
Yeah, well, now they would. That's why there's no Twister 2. You
Now
don't
there's
see-
Sharknado.
yeah, now there's Sharknado on the cheap. So it's all the special effects now. That's where the money goes to. So we couldn't. So they said, well, do you have anybody else in mind? And I said, yeah, I had a friend of mine, Vince Miller, worked at the Weather Channel, and he was out of a job at that time. And I said, maybe Vince would be interested. So I called up Vince, and he said, yeah, he'd be interested to do that. And he said, what's your take out of this? And I said, well, I'll tell you what. You get me 2 tickets to the premiere, red carpet style, and we'll call it even. So fine. So I sold the group on Vince Miller. Vince Miller went along for 9 months. He basically said it didn't matter what he told them, that the wind doesn't blow that way in a tornado. They're going to do it anyways. So he said, for the most part, being a technical advisor was really not. It was an odd job. I mean, it was an odd job, but it was a job where they're going to do their own thing. I mean, it's for dramatic effect, and they were going to really listen to the technical aspects of what tornadoes do and don't do.
So you didn't have to advise them on the flying cows and all that.
Yeah, when somebody comes to you and says, "Hey, we're going to put flying cows," and you can actually hear moo. Come on.
Well, I still love the truck going through the house that's rolling across the highway.
Yeah.
And coming out the other side without so much as a scratch.
Right.
That's one of those oddities, Brian.
That's one of those oddities, definitely.
Yeah, it is an oddity. Yeah. And they built these 2 tanker trucks, and they had primacord around them, and they dropped them from a helicopter and hit the button to make them explode when they hit the ground. They built 2 because in case they had a bad shot on one, they wanted to have take 2. But they got it right. But still, it's all drama and entertainment. It's not much scientifically accurate with the movie, really. There's so many flaws in the first 10 minutes that the movie, that if you were sitting there and saying, just sit back and enjoy the movie, okay?
Great action adventure.
Yeah, you could pick it apart, 100 different ways on the thing.
Just suspend disbelief.
But I got to go to the premiere of Twister, which is wonderful. Red carpet treatment. Got to be in the same theater as Bill Paxton and Helen Hunt, and even got tickets to go to the reception afterwards and got to meet Bill Paxton and talk with him a little bit about the movie and his role. And he told me his parents live in Fort Worth, and this movie fame thing was brand new to him. And he said, Tim, when my day comes due that I'm no longer needed, we'll go chasing together,
So you still got that in your back pocket.
Yeah, still got it. I said, fine. Absolutely. Little did I realize he was going to have Apollo 13 and Titanic and all these other
I noticed
B-grade movies.
You didn't mention meeting Helen Hunt.
Yeah.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Yeah. She was not too interested to talk to me.
Oh. We noticed you talked a lot more about Bill Paxton.
Yeah. It was fun. Bill Paxton was great and very down-to-earth guy. And when we went to Waukita and talked with the people there, they said that Bill was a very down-to-earth guy, that he would play football with the kids when he was not needed on the set. He was just, a local Texan that would just fit in with everybody else and was very nice. So, and that's what I found, with him. He was that way.
So we know what you do, chasing and damage surveys and things like that, but talk about your day job, Tim. What's involved in that?
I actually asked him if he had a day job because I said, Tim, it's like, do you ever actually sit down at a desk at work?
Punch a clock, any of that stuff?
I have a desk. It gets lots of dirt on it because I'm always mobile. I'm flying or traveling places. My job is as a forensic engineer meteorologist. So I survey disasters for a living. Well, very few disasters happen in and around my office. I've got to travel to these places, and we cover the entire United States. So Hague Engineering is one of the oldest engineering firms that does this sort of thing, and it was incorporated back in 1924. It was a small group of engineers until when I first came on board. They were starting to hire out people. It was only like 10 engineers. Now they're over 100, and they've got multiple offices around the country, and they're expanding very dramatically in other areas even. So it's in the disaster realm, and disasters are big business for us. And every day there's a disaster. Now, my end of things is a weather-related disaster. So just think of how many weather-related disasters there are every day. There's car accidents because of ice or on a road somewhere. There's lightning that hits a TV tower, causes some damage. There's hurricanes, tornadoes, wind events, snowstorms, ice storms. I mean, somewhere in the country, there's bad weather occurring every single day. And because of that, we are either busy or we're super duper busy. And it's been that way since when we hit the ground running. The worst years were 04 and 05, as you know, because we have back-to-back hurricanes. All we need, folks, is one hurricane a year to keep me busy. I don't need 2, 3, 4 hurricanes to keep me busy and gets inundated. So I really couldn't work Wilma, for example, because I was so busy with these other hurricanes that have happened. Katrina, I spent 6 months. I spent 3 months in Mobile and then 3 months in Pensacola for Katrina, and Ivan rather. And
Ivan.
then for Katrina, it was 6 months in the Mobile area. So we rented a house and we worked all out of the house. Our whole staff did. The office was there.
So, which side of the insurance do you normally find yourself on? Are you working for the insurance company, for the plaintiffs? What?
Well,
we do that sort of stuff?
do both defense work and plaintiff work, and litigation is a small amount of my business. But most of our clients are insurance related. They want to know what caused the damage. Was it wind? Was it water? Was it both? And then how bad is it? I mean, do we have to level the house? Do we rebuild it? We get a lot of trees in houses after hurricanes. So it's like, okay, how many walls do you take out? What do you have to do to repair the roof? And that's the sort of thing that we as engineers go in and we can do, And most of the time it goes smoothly. Contractors we work with, we all come to an agreement on what needs to be done, end of story. But every once in a while, it becomes controversial and someone doesn't agree with us, and then we go further with it.
But it generally works out.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
not just an impasse situation. I mean, some solution always arrives
Right.
somewhere.
We all want to resolve the situation as quickly as possible, go down the road. There's plenty of other buildings to look at.
So, Tim, hurricanes are obviously part of what you do too. You chase them also?
Sure. I mean, I love wind. It doesn't matter if it's tornado wind or a hurricane wind. I love wind. So I actually go down and write it out. And I do that just out of my own fun, but also now that I work at Hague, I can testify that I was there. I know how bad it was. I know whether the water came up first or the wind happened first or what the winds were. Sure, I can do all that.
So you were there for Hurricane Katrina, I suppose.
Yes, I
Tell us about that.
Well, Hurricane Katrina, another hurricane, it was more severe than I had expected from the water end of things. I was waiting for the hurricane to come on shore, but it kind of slowed up and filled, and the wind field broadened. And even Mobile Bay had a record storm surge from Katrina.
I could not believe
Of all
that
of
the
it.
storm surge from Katrina, whose center was 100 and so miles to the west, was equal to Hurricane Ivan, which had come right up the eastern edge of the bay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so that it was a very broad hurricane.
So we expected Cat 5, but not Cat 3, but still, it was that wind field broadening that weakened the winds, but the surge was very, very high, record levels all along the Mississippi coast and into Alabama, and we worked along the coast for, like I said, about a 6 months period.
So where were you when the hurricane came ashore?
I wrote it out in a parking garage in Slidell. I was looking on Google for steel reinforced parking garages that I knew weren't going to fail, but my concern was flooding. So overlaying all of the steel parking garages that were on the coast, Gulfport was not going to be a good place because it's very low in elevation, and in fact, the surge could reach all the way to I-10. So that was scary for me. I don't want to be caught in a hurricane to the point where I have to have rescue. My car, my vehicle is the most important thing to me, and I don't want to lose that. in a hurricane because I'd be stranded. And I don't want to be stranded. I want to get in, I want to ride it out, and I want to get out of there as soon as I can. So what I liked about Slidell was it's at the intersection of I-12 and I-10. And if I-10 is cut off, well, then there's always I-12. And I could try to go inland if at all possible. I know that there are parts of Slidell that are very low, and I wanted to keep out of there. So I was up on the 5th story of the parking garage in Slidell, and that was about 40 feet up. So I felt pretty good. There were not too many 40-foot storm surge events around. So I felt pretty good that I was in a fairly safe place. I thought the hurricane was going to come in more to New Orleans and not take a curve as it did. I still was in the eye, but only for about 30 minutes before we got the backside winds there. But while I was in the eye, Gulfport was getting the full force of the winds, in the front. So I kind of missed it because I like to be in the east eye wall if I can. I kind of missed it by about 20, 30 miles. But still, it was a ferocious hurricane, as we all know. And I had been trapped in that parking garage because it did flood. Even though the base elevation was about 18 feet, the water came up all around. And I had 10 different escape routes plotted on my map. All 10 were blocked, 8 of them by trees and 2 of them by flooding. So I waited about 6 hours, and the flood waters was just slowly going down. So I went out, got my hip waders on, and I went out and see how deep the water was out in front of the parking garage. And it was only about 18 inches. And I said, well, I have a truck, big truck. So I said, that I can make that. So I made it over to I-10. And I went south on I-10, but didn't go very far to find out that there's no more I-10. And then I turned around and went to I-12 and then headed back slowly west on I-12, and there were down trees and power lines. I had to negotiate around and take a few detours. But I finally made it back over Lafayette and then went home.
So were you shocked at what happened in the city of New Orleans, Tim?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I was hearing on the radio, and I heard the mayor say, and I will quote, "We dodged a bullet," unquote. Mm-hmm. And I thought, oh, well, that's great. I mean, in essence, they did. And I had no idea at the time what the levee situation was there, but neither did the mayor. And he came on board and said, hey, levees hell, we're in good. But little did he realize that they had some serious problems already going there with the levee situation.
Have you looked at what they've done in New Orleans since then?
Sure.
How do you feel about the city's readiness for the next big hurricane?
When you say big hurricane, you're going to have to qualify that, okay? Because New Orleans is fine for another Cat 1. But if they get another Katrina or even greater, it's going to be flood again. It's just going to happen. On Hurricane Rita, did you see how high the water got? On Hurricane Rita, it was up to the very edge again to flood the city. So,
yeah, is Kevin here? Yeah, Kevin's there. Kevin, you really question, whether New Orleans should be rebuilt after Hurricane Katrina.
I'm sorry, Bill. We're in a show. I can't comment right now.
Okay. So if it floods again, when will it stop? Well, will you continue to rebuild New Orleans?
Well, New Orleans has other problems going on. First of all, the sea levels rising, and the New Orleans, the southern part of Louisiana is disappearing. It's because of the rerouting of the Mississippi, and all that sediment that was out there to build up these delta areas is going away. So you have a triple whammy going on here. You've got sinking, you've got the lack of sediment now, and then you've got the rising sea level. So all those, it doesn't bode well for New Orleans. It's a very substantial wall, and not only a single wall, but a double wall as well. And then you're going to have to cordon off New Orleans into sectors and put walls in those sectors. See, right now there's no redundancy. You have a failure of a levee, you're going to flood the city. And that's a serious problem. From an engineering standpoint, we always like redundancy. That's what we preach all the time. Have a backup. And in the case of the city, you should have 2 backups, but there's not.
So, knowing that and knowing what's happened with Katrina, I guess we're just hoping that we go another 40 years without another major hurricane.
Right now, we got to just hope that it doesn't happen.
So you were part of the team that put together the EF scale. How do you feel it stood up to this point, and what changes are coming in the future to it that you can talk about?
The EF scale is still a subjective scale, no doubt about it, but it has stood the test of time right now in its use and application. The service adopted it. Looks like it's moving forward. There still needs to be improvements, and we're going to make the improvements out of it. It's not going to be a done deal by any means, but we're going to have definitely future improvements on this scale.
So you were talking tonight about something that I wasn't familiar with, and that is porch shelters. Talk about what porch shelters are for tornadoes.
You know, you have to go upstairs to a mobile home, and you have to go upstairs to a lot of these houses that are elevated on brick piers. And there are companies out there that make porch shelters, which is, just about every one of these homes has a concrete porch. Well, just make a shelter out of it. And they have prefab shelters that you buy that you can go down into, and it serves as a safety zone for you. And they can be NSSA approved, which means that they're available to withstand 250-mile-an-hour winds plus impact of a 2x4 at 100 miles an hour. So they can meet the standards, and not any companies I can name, but on the air, but do your research, and you will find that there are plenty of different shelter companies out there.
Oh, Brian, you gone muted again.
We can't afford to be muted.
Sorry.
There we go.
What is Brian doing down there?
I'm trying to do show notes, and every time I do, it goes mute.
Multitasking, James. He's multitasking. So talk about building codes and the situation that communities face and that homeowners face and what they deal with in that regard, how we could make homes more wind resistant.
What time do you have?
Well, we can go till your voice runs out.
My voice has already run out. But
he's running on auxiliary voice now.
The thing about it is building codes are a minimum, and I always preach that. And we've all taken tests in our life, and we all know that 70 is sort of the passing grade. And now, when you do take a test, are you hoping just for a 70, or would you like to get maybe a 71 or 80 or 85 or 90 or 100? Hopefully, you would like to get this high grade as you can. Well, unfortunately, in the building community, we see that 70 is the bar, and the goal is the bar. And if they get 70 or 71, then they pass. And that's really all that they care about. I always like to see building above the code, and that the code is just a minimum. And there's no harm in building above the code. Yes, it's going to cost a little more, but those costs are small in comparison to the percentages of a house. So, yeah, bolts may be required, but straps are not required. But there's no harm in strapping your house down. Roofing to wall is a great way to strap it. Sheathe your house solidly with wood. That is excellent. Make a box out of your house, and then strap or bolt or anchor your floor to the foundation. I mean, those are the three things: roof to wall, the wall itself, and then the floor to foundation or wall to foundation. Those are the areas to concentrate on. And you can build a house that is more wind resistant than the code. And there's no harm in doing that. The benefits could be that it could save your life.
So you mentioned tonight that, I'm sorry, Brian.
Oh, that's all right. What is there any hope of, if the building codes are set to 70, is there much hope in trying to get that raised to a higher level because of politics and costs and whatever?
Most houses have been built under kind of a 90 mile per hour, 3-second gust above the 10 meters above the ground, or 33 feet. That's what most houses have been built by. There are advancements being done. Florida has a statewide building code. It's excellent, and they are much higher level of wind resistant code than anywhere else in the country. But then Moore, Oklahoma stepped up to the plate here, and after being hit by 3 major tornadoes and several minor ones, the city itself of Moore has adopted a 135 mile an hour code, which is very stringent. The only one that has ever done that in the center of the U.S. To be commended to do that. Yes, it took 3 major tornadoes, but they finally got to the point of dealing with so much debris and death that they realized that if you build better, you can save lives. And building a better home has been demanded by the public, and that helps. They don't want to see so much debris. They don't want to see the loss of their loved ones. So building better helps. And it's not going to prevent all deaths for sure.
No,
but
right.
it will do a far away. If you can prevent the debris flying around, because that's what hurts and kills a lot of people, and walls falling on people, if you can prevent the debris falling on and crushing people, and you can do that by making sure walls don't fall over, make sure they're attached properly, and that the whole house is solidly sheathed like a box. So there is some protection there.
So Tim, when you, I saw a story where you went to the National Severe Storms Forecast Center when you were younger, and they just happened to be throwing out a lot of their library that day. What are some of the things you walked away with
to
gosh. Make your library?
I'm a book nut. I love books. I got a huge library at home, and I love books. Well, I was, I think Alan Pearson was there at the time, and they said, yeah, they have a bin that they throw out from time to time with their seconds. And because their library was totally stocked with to the rim, and there were monthly weather reviews, Fujita articles on the Palm Sunday outbreak. I remember that, and I acquired all of those. And they had just not only the journals like monthly weather review, but they had books, and that I have, and I remember packing my car so full of books that I was almost dragging the pavement back to my house, but I still have those today.
So what was the National Severe Storms Forecast Center like back in the day?
Well, it was like the old weather services were. They had these facsimile maps, these Difax maps, hanging up on the wall, and they were hand drawn, those things. And they have a briefing every day and go over it when the shift changes, And so I got to meet Larry Wilson, who I'm still friends with on Facebook. It's amazing how Facebook, we're all on Facebook, but it's like,
don't get Kevin started.
But it's really nice that, I remember Chuck Dozzle was not there at the time. He was out for lunch or something. I don't know. But I met Dr. Joe Schaefer, who was there, and Ralph Henderson was radar man there. And so, and Alan Pearson, I got to meet him. So it was like, these were my idols when I was growing up and going to school and, watching the teletypes, those are the machines that you sit in front of, go tap, 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 letter by letter, like a typewriter. And I used to sit in front of those for hours and plot the SAOs, the surface airway observations, and hand draw my own surface maps.
We're a vanishing breed that remembers teletypes.
Yes. I have one in my basement.
You have a teletype in your basement?
I have a NOAA weather wire teletype in my basement. Brian's going to help me rig it up to Twitter. I'm just going to took it to President Trump's Twitter account, and it'll be really busy.
Absolutely,
brother. So, your career's been amazing, Tim, but it's probably not what you aspired to do when you started out. So, what advice do you have to young people to be ready to take advantage of opportunity like you have?
I had many forks in the road. I don't know what those other forks would have led to. I thank Jimmy Carter for putting a freeze on government hiring during my fork in the road. And I was going to go be a meteorologist, work for the Weather Service, but he said no. So I said, okay. So I went into engineering. So we never know. You set out, follow your passion. You're going to end up something close. I love tornadoes. I'm surveying tornado damage. Now, I happen to be an engineer and a meteorologist. I got the best of both worlds. Plus, I'm surveying tornadoes and hurricane damage. So I think I'm pretty fortunate that I started out with a dream, and I'm living that dream. And I'm really lucky for that. I'm really thankful for that.
So your wife likes to chase with you too, right?
Not really.
But she has, right?
She is forced to chase. She is the longest. I won't say oldest, but I just did. But the longest forced to chase spouse out there. She has been forced to chase for over 4 decades.
So what advice do you have for young storm chasers that are coming up?
Learn all you can. Definitely go with somebody who's experienced before you try it on your own. I mean, I still give the analogy that it's like tracking down and photographing a lion. You got to know something about this animal you're going to go after, okay? You can't just go out there and start taking pretty pictures of it, you know. You have to watch its behavior a bit. And you got to learn from the guide who takes you out there before you do it on your own. Yes, learn all you can, read all you can. And you know, it's not all fancy YouTube videos. There's a strategy to this thing. Learn how to forecast, and you'll get more out of it. To me, half of the chase is forecasting. If I can predict within 30 miles that a tornado is going to occur and drive for 8 hours and get there, and a tornado develops where I said it was, that really enhances the chase for me. I mean, yeah, seeing a tornado is fun and great and all that, but if I can forecast that, it's that feel of control that you've done it and that you can figure out Mother Nature's wild tricks. Every once in a while, it works.
So do
go ahead.
No.
I was very impressed in your talk this evening, Tim, about how several changes occurred in the El Reno tornado at the same time to make it an even more dangerous storm, with the change in direction, the widening, and I can't remember what the third one was, but
accelerating.
That's it, accelerating. That I haven't chased as long as you have, but I have done my share of chasing, and I think that's something that most chasers probably don't look at, is how that animal the analogy you just used, how that animal can change. Because here in the southeastern U.S., we haven't seen tracks that we know did what the El Reno storm did, for example.
Well, when you're dealing with what I would call a relatively weak wind profile, the storms can meander around a bit or stay anchored. And those situations pose an additional risk to chasing them because they can move. Really, what the El Reno tornado did, in my opinion, is it interacted with the rear flank downdraft that was surging out, and it forced that tornado to shift its direction and accelerate and wrap up quick. Right. And that was the action of the rear flank downdraft that came in. And we don't have very much visual clues of that out chasing, other than just looking at the tornado and seeing the changes in the tornado that's happening. Right. So we can't forecast that, when that's going to occur or how much of the surge is going to happen in the gust front. But that's what I believed was responsible for all three of those things.
Right.
That did that to the El Reno tornado.
Well, I was also impressed with you talking about having a 5-minute margin of safety, and how those changes really chopped that margin of safety down to, I think you said 90 seconds. So your nice cushion was just mostly wiped out by those changes.
As an engineer, I deal with safety factors, or factors of safety. That's what we like to deal with. So we like to put our cushion in there and figure that whatever the tornado does, we have a time, here and there. We don't want to be too close to the tornado.
Right.
But because the tornado did all three things, it widened out, it accelerated very fast, and it changed direction. It did all three things. I mean, I'm available to accept that the tornado can do one or maybe two of those three things, but not all three. And because it did all three things, it really just cut the factor of safety down tremendously. So, and had we been a mile closer, it would have been very, very much on the edge.
Yeah. So one of the big questions I'm sure James is considering asking is, do you get rich with all this video you take of tornadoes?
I have a private account with James Spann, and it has worked out really well for me.
Well, I think there's a lot of people out there who think that if you get great tornado video, you're going to get paid a large sum of money. And that's really not true.
Not today. It used to be back in the olden days, 20 years ago, when you were the only one on a storm.
Right.
But you could get paid a lot of money.
But now everybody's got one of these in their purse or on their belt or something, and they can grab some pretty spectacular shots without being storm chasers.
Absolutely.
Tim, how much is a lot of money back in the day if your video went to the network, say?
The highest price I've sold was $95 per second for 2 minutes.
Oh, wow. I have another one since I'm able to talk now in my own studio, if I may. I was talking with a real estate agent today. This goes towards people's fading memories. I'm in Wichita Falls, and I was talking to a real estate agent today about storm shelters and what that does or doesn't do to the value of a home. And he kind of shrugged and he said, well, really doesn't matter much anymore. As time fades, we get further and further away from 1979. He said people just don't remember anymore, don't care anymore. The memories fade. I guess there's nothing we can do about that, right? It's just human nature.
It's human nature. Well, memories fade. That's true.
So, Tim, after El Reno, we had Mike Morgan, and there was a lot of controversy about differing advice that different television meteorologists gave to their audiences about, drive south, go underground, blah, blah, blah. What's your opinion of all that, and how can we present a more consistent message?
I think the consistent message needs to be stay home and put as many walls between you and the outside as possible. You have a much better chance surviving in your own house, even though it may be poorly built. And I stress that, a lot of houses are poorly built. You're not going to get hit with the EF4, EF5 style tornado. It's very rare. Let's put it that way. And you have a much better chance of surviving in your house. If you go outside, you're putting yourself at much greater risk. If you get in your car, you're putting yourself at much greater risk. And you just don't want to do that. I mean, that's not safe. There was a tremendous traffic jam in Oklahoma City on the El Reno event. And I was stuck in it myself. And I had to eventually do an about face and get out of there because there was another circulation coming towards the interstate. And had it not been for the traffic jam, I would have been easily able to escape. But the traffic jam was right on the interstate. They were clogged. Nobody was going anywhere. Had a tornado developed and crossed the interstate, it would have been real serious on the west side of Oklahoma City, especially.
So you mentioned that Oklahoma state troopers, police, whatever, were actually setting up roadblocks, and that could become a serious problem. Because when the tornado becomes unpredictable, like El Reno, it's not just going southwest to northeast, and they don't know where it's going to go. You can create other problems. Are they doing something about that in Oklahoma?
No, I mean, the police, obviously, they're trying to protect the public and putting up roadblocks, but because of the fast-changing situation, and especially with El Reno, with the changing of direction and size and acceleration, the roadblock system, it turned out to be a hindrance rather than help. So it's not always that case. And in some instances, yeah, you're trying to prevent people from driving into a tornado, but it's fast changing, always fast changing. And it's not knowing exactly where the tornado is. We didn't even know exactly where the tornado was and what it was doing. And it can be a hindrance sometimes.
In the April 27th, 2011 outbreak, I viewed the Cordova storm on the I-22 to the northwest of Birmingham. And what was interesting was the police did not put a roadblock across I-22, but the cars that were traveling toward the tornado, where we were on a hill, they could see it. The traffic itself stopped itself and didn't proceed as that tornado actually crossed the interstate. So that didn't even require a police officer in that case.
Well, in the case of the Dallas tornado, back in a year ago, December, unfortunately, the vast majority of the deaths occurred right on the interstate, where the tornado crossed at night,
right,
and killed 8 or 9 people.
Yeah, this was during the day.
Yeah, So I understand roadblocks, and I'm all for them if properly placed and moved along with the track of the tornado, but not all the time is that known.
Yeah.
So
that's
Tim,
a good
you
point.
love books, I love books, and Aubrey loves books. So Tim, that's Aubrey down there, and she wants to know, what are your favorite weather books?
Hi, Tim. It's Aubrey Urbanowitz from Virginia. You were talking earlier about how you love to read and you had a whole library. And sorry I couldn't ask the question, I was in show, but do you have any favorite weather books you can recommend?
Well, sure. I mean, there are both technical and popular books. some of the early books that I got that I just love were a book by Flora about the tornadoes of the United States. That's a beautiful book. There was one by Dudley Lynch. It's about the Texas tornadoes. That's also a wonderful book. There's also a Hailstorms of the United States book. Yeah, that's really, really nice. I love those old books. They got the black and white photos in there showing all the destruction and the tornadoes. And then even before that, years ago, I had two book dealers that were looking for early tornado style books or pamphlets. After major disasters, certain publishers would put out these very flowery rhetoric books about the mantle of doom that comes from the sky. And there's a calamity of Ohio and Illinois back in 1913. And then there's these little photo books. There's one of the Terre Haute, Indiana tornadoes that I have. A beautiful fold out. The St. Louis tornado of 1898, I believe. A lot of these books meant for sale to the public, but have very embellished stories in them and photographs and drawings, And there are like 7 books on the Galveston hurricane. And I have 6 of the 7. And I have 6 of 7 Parker Finley's books back in the tornadoes in the 1880s and that. Yeah. So I've got some really beautiful books and I love them. And I actually have a fire safe I put them in case my house burns out. I want to save my books.
Wow.
Coming soon to Vestavia, fire safe for all my weather books. That's a good idea. So Aubrey, any other questions for Tim?
Sorry, I haven't been able to pipe in. It's just fascinating listening to. I liked what Kevin was asking about the oddities of what tornadoes have done. Seems like that should be a book, maybe collaboration with some NWS survey teams and yourself, and some of the oddities of the things that tornadoes have done. Just kind of blowing your mind away.
Well, some of the older books that I was talking about have some very unusual oddities. That they actually downright funny oddities. They talk about, I think John Parker Finley was talking about how a guy was sitting up on a fence post and the tornado came by, and the next thing you know, he was turned completely around on that fence post. Now, how does that happen? He cannot describe what happened in between the time. He just knew that he was facing east before and now he's facing west. How does that happen? You don't even
Tim, I think what she's suggesting is, when are we going to see your book?
Yeah.
Yes.
I've been preaching against folklore my whole life. I'm going to write a book about folklore.
Come on. We want a book.
We want your stories.
Want a book. Yes.
We want your stories.
Yeah.
I think coming up as a young aspiring meteorologist and doing reports in junior high and high school, I think one of my oddities is that picture of the palm tree with the 2x4 that is run through it.
Is that from Hurricane Andrew?
From Hurricane? No, this would have been, this would have been back in probably
26.
Oh, I thought you were that young, Brian.
Okay, thank you, Aubrey. I absolutely love you, Aubrey.
Brian's high school yearbook.
Yeah. That probably was in the 50s. Do you remember? Do you know the picture I'm talking about?
Yeah.
I mean, in every hurricane book, it seemed like, or any hurricane book that I was reading at that age, that there would be that picture of that palm tree with the 2x4 through it.
Yeah, I remember seeing that. It's old photo, but it's there. There's also a picture of an LP in a telephone pole, unbroken LP in a telephone pole.
Any truth to the rumor that was a recording of stormy weather?
Any truth to the rumor it was planted there to make a good photo?
Oh, there we go.
Ah, yes.
So James, you've held your questions here. I'm sure you have a bunch for Tim, and then we've got to get him to his hotel because he's.
Yeah, I know you guys got to go. Tim, do we need to change the Saffir-Simpson scale, blow it up, and do something different?
Well, I was on the committee about this very issue and was asked to make a report on it, whether the Saffir-Simpson scale should be divided into 2 scales. And my vote was for that. the Safford-Simpson scale was a wind scale, and surge was added later. And my big beef with that scale was that the wind and the water are two different things here, folks. It matters greatly upon other things besides wind, like, for example, how shallow Mississippi Sound is. I mean, that where you're located there, if you're on the edge of a bay or an inlet, so facing the wind. I mean, you can get a much higher surge up a bay or inlet if the wind is facing the right direction. And then again, if it's offshore wind, then you're not going to get as big a surge. So direction makes a difference. And they agreed that they need to parse that out. So the new Safford-Simpson scale does not have surge associated with it. That's a great move forward in my book.
Can you all see the record in the?
Oh, you got the record in the. There you go. Look at that. Now, come on.
That is really something.
Are you telling me that? Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's like the truck that went through the house rolling across the highway. There's no marks on the record, right?
Yeah, I'm really skeptical about that. It makes for a great photo now, doesn't it?
It sure does.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Hey, Tim, if let's say you're coming into a tornado scene, you're there to do some survey work. What's the first thing you look for? The very first thing?
Well, usually I try to get permission before I go into that site. I look for the nearest law enforcement person that can direct me to get clearance to get into the damage zone. And sometimes they're very nice about that they'll actually give me an escort. So the great thing about that is they've already been there. They know where the worst damage areas are. They can take me directly to where the worst damages are. And that happened actually here in 2011, where I was escorted in all these little towns around by the local, either a police or a deputy that knew where the worst damages were. Because that's what the Weather Service needs to know: path length, path width, and the intensity. Those three things. Now, I like the idea of doing aerial survey as soon as possible because you can get the path length and path width pretty quickly. Intensity, you got to look at it from the ground.
Yeah, but one of the things I like about aerial surveys is it does help me focus on the spots I need to go back to look for where I think the most intense damage appears to have been from the air.
Right. It's true.
I think one thing we rely on, and with the Weather Service, when we go out to these storm damage sites, is we really rely on the county EM directors. They're the ones that really know where the worst damage is. So we typically, before we even get to the site, we'll contact those folks, and they kind of take us to where we need to go.
And are you using drones, Tim?
I have not yet, but I have been using other people's drones in terms of their information that they get me. I think there is a place for drones in the damage assessments, especially if we need to know how the roof is attached to the walls, and we can't get up to the top of the roof other than a drone can tell us.
Awesome. Well, listen, I hate to cut it off here, but we got to do some television. But Tim, you were awesome to stay for more than an hour. So Bill and Mark and Brian and Tim, thank you guys. Now y'all can go down to Hooters or wherever you want to go to.
Thanks, guys.
Card from there.
Yeah, but thank you so much, Tim. It's great having you on the show. And Mark, Bill, Brian, thank you guys.
All right. Does that mean we're released?
You are released.
You can stop muting now.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
But I'll let you disconnect, guys, down there. We're going to roll some Professor Peters, and we also have Tony Rice, and we're going to come back with Weather Roundup, email, picks of the week, and more as WeatherBrains rolls along.
WeatherBrains 101 with Professor Peters.
This edition of WeatherBrains 101 is more of a newser. The reason is that the next generation of geostationary Earth-orbiting satellites has sent its first high-resolution images of the Western Hemisphere. GOES-R was launched on November the 19th, 2016 at 6:42 p.m. Eastern Standard Time from Cape Canaveral, Florida. These first images usher in a new era of Earth and space weather observation for the United States. The satellite was launched as GOES-R, but now that it is in orbit and going through a battery of operational tests, it has been renamed GOES-16. GOES-16 is the first spacecraft in the GOES-R series of 4 new geostationary satellites capturing higher resolution images of weather patterns and atmospheric phenomena than any of NOAA's GOES satellites to date. The higher resolution will allow forecasters to pinpoint the location of severe weather with greater accuracy. GOES-16's Advanced Baseline Imager, or ABI instrument, built by Harris Corporation, can multitask in a way that older satellites cannot. It can provide a full disk image of the Earth every 15 minutes, one of the continental U.S. every 5 minutes, and target regional areas where severe weather, hurricanes, wildfires, volcanic eruptions, or other high-impact events are occurring as often as every 30 seconds. ABI covers the Earth 5 times faster than the current generation of GOES imagers and has 4 times greater spatial resolution, allowing meteorologists to see smaller features, details that can help forecasters improve forecasts. Once operational later this year, GOES-16 will support short-term forecasts, watches and warnings, maritime forecasts, wildfire monitoring, volcanic ash monitoring, and space weather predictions. In May, NOAA will announce the planned location for GOES-16. By November 2017, GOES-16 will be operational as either the GOES East or GOES West satellite. Following on the heels of GOES-R will be GOES-S, the next spacecraft in the series, which is planned for launch in the spring of 2018. GOES-S is undergoing environmental testing at Lockheed Martin Corporation's Littleton, Colorado facility where it was built. A full set of environmental, mechanical, and electromagnetic testing will take about 1 year to complete. After its initial on-orbit checkout, the GOES-S satellite will be moved into the other operational position as GOES-17. This is definitely an exciting time for meteorologists with a new tool to help unlock more information about our fantastic atmosphere. If you have a weather question, drop an email to question@weatherbrains.com.
Looking beyond the atmosphere, here's Tony Rice with your astronomy outlook.
We're just 7 months out from the total solar eclipse, which will stretch from coast to coast on August 21st, 2017. This will be the first total solar eclipse in the continental United States in 38 years. The last one was on February 26, 1979, and it started in Portland, Oregon, and passed through about Winnipeg, Manitoba. But along the way, it left a lot of disappointed people due to overcast skies. Before that one, you've got to go all the way back to March 7, 1970, when totality passed through Florida, Georgia, the Carolinas, and Virginia. But this year's is being called the Great American Solar Eclipse. Now, there's so much to share about the eclipse between now and August. I'll have something every month until then. You might ask why all the emphasis, but it's really hard to overstate the event. My friend Dr. Lika Guhathakurta is lead scientist for the Living with a Star program at NASA headquarters in Washington. She put it best when she spoke to the American Geophysical Union's annual meeting in San Francisco recently. It's going to be the most observed, most filmed and photographed, most studied, and best documented and probably the most appreciated eclipses in all human history, unquote. So next time, I'll try to share some about the rare opportunity a total eclipse provides for a variety of different kinds of scientific observations. This also includes verification of some of Einstein's theories. Elsewhere in the sky, if your morning run begins before sunrise, look out for the moon to slide past Saturn and Mercury early this week. About an hour before sunrise Tuesday morning, the moon will be within about 3.5 degrees of Saturn. That's your astronomy outlook. Follow me at RTP Hokie for more spacey stuff like this.
Now, WeatherBrains is tracking the tracker. We track what the consultants track so you can track along with us. Does that make sense? Here's WeatherBrains lead tracker, Kevin Selly.
I sense trouble.
You know, can I just be honest? Please. I pressed the wrong button.
Oh,
I was going to see if Aubrey could do email, and I panicked and hit the wrong button. Aubrey,
yep.
You've got time to do email?
Yes.
That's not the email jingle.
Well, if she's got time, then we've got time to see if we got the email waiting on us.
Letters. We get letters. We get stacks and stacks of letters.
And before I do email real quick, I do want to give a shout out to our good friend and faithful viewer, Derek Weber, who is driving from Canada to Florida and contacted me and stopped in, got a station tour, and took a picture with him and everything. I believe some of you maybe have met him before, but it was really nice to see a WeatherBrains viewer in our studio. So he got a little more than a tour. We were doing a promo shoot that day, so he got to watch that too. So thanks to Derek for always tuning in. And before the people behind me get too loud, I'll try and do this real quick.
Tell them to pipe down back there. We're doing a show.
All right. So first email is from Bill Hark. I enjoy watching your show. If you all have a chance, consider mentioning Storm Assist. They're storm chasers that raise money for storm victims through compilations of donated chaser video and other items. So they have released amazing chaser compilation videos for the last few years, and the 2016 version just went on sale. He did send in some links. He's not part of the organization, but does donate tornado video to them. So hopefully a mention on WeatherBrains may boost some awareness, and certainly those areas do need a lot of awareness and a lot of help. So maybe Brian can get that. I'll re-forward that to Brian to make sure he can put that on our website. So the next, yes, please shush. The next email comes in from Robert Westbrook. Love the podcast. There's no doubt of your disdain for the many crap apps that are out there today. So can we suggest some non-crap apps?
Oh boy, that's a whole show. We need to do an Appapalooza show like we did one time.
We did one. I think we need another one. I don't know of one for forecasting other than your local station that's able to input their forecasts and it's not automated.
Yeah, what I'd say in terms of warning apps, I like the Weather Decision Technology app, Weather Radio, for getting warnings. And for radar, I like Radar Scope, which happens to be by the same company, and they have a new upgrade that came out today with MPing. And those are the two big ones that I would advise to have on your phone if you're a weather geek.
I'm partial. Go ahead.
Go.
No, I'm partial to that app that's put out by the National Weather Service. Oh, wait, they're not allowed.
Sorry. Here we go.
Yeah, let me blow the buzzer.
Tim Bryce sent us a bunch of Instagram accounts from NWS offices. There are a few experimenting with Instagram: Sacramento, Missoula, Seattle, San Francisco, El Paso, San Antonio, Wakefield, Columbia, Hastings, Sioux Falls, Juneau, and Fairbanks. And Steve, the Jazz Man, sent us that the Packers and Cowboys fans and players got stuck inside the stadium during a tornado warning.
Yeah.
And let's see, the AccuWeather did report that a tornado touched down in Arlington. Definitely kind of scary there. Did anything happen? Is this the Sunday game in Atlanta?
The one he's talking about is 2 weeks ago in Dallas.
Okay. Did anything happen with the Sunday one? I know with the storms rolling through the area.
They had thunderstorms, but no severe weather in Atlanta, thank goodness.
That was good. I was half in there. So, yeah, that's all I have right now. So if you would like to send us your email at weatherbrains.com, guest suggestions, show notes, questions, whatever you'd like to send us, you can do so at email@weatherbrains.com.
Okay, and for everybody that's on the remote site, we'll have their picks up on the website. My pick of the week is a Nate Johnson product. I don't even know he authored this thing. The AMS guidelines for social media posting. And there'll be a link to this. And apparently Nate's one of the lead authors on that. And I had no idea. Kev, what's your pick?
That's a good read by Nate. And I have a comment on that document on the Digital Meteorologist blog, which is not my pick. My pick is I'm sure we must have done this at some time in the past, but it's the Weather Service's National Snow Analysis page. I just couldn't ever remember seeing this, but it's got a lot of cool things on it: snow water equivalent, snow depth, average snowpack temperature, which I thought was kind of cool. You know, you look upstream, or for here in Texas, we look up through the central and northern plains to see how an air mass may or may not modify as it's coming south. And so those things are kind of helpful.
Aubrey, what's your pick of the week?
Mine is just an incredible picture that I am just kind of obsessed with. It is the twisted pine tree in Albany. I guess they don't pronounce it Albany down there, but Albany.
It's Albany.
Albany. Okay. All right. So yeah, that picture is just kind of stuck in my mind. The incredible power of that tornado. A tornado. I mean, just the tree is literally twisted.
Yeah,
you sure that's not the name of a local bar, the Twisted Pine Tree? That
sounds like a great name. We're gonna have to find that one.
I wish we had time to do a weather roundup because we did have a major severe weather outbreak, but we had Tim Marshall tonight. Wanted to give all the time to him. We'll come back next week and talk about the southeastern tornado outbreak. But we've all got to go do television. The three left here, we're TV people, so we got to put the ribbon on this thing. WeatherBrains is on the air every Monday night. Typically, this is Tuesday night, a Tuesday night special. Typically, we're here Monday night, 9:30 Eastern, 8:30 Central. Most people watch at live.bigbrainsmedia.com. If you would like to get in touch with us, the email address, it is email@weatherbrains.com, and our social media accounts are on the website as well. So on behalf of the entire WeatherBrains crew, I'm James Spann. Thanks for listening. Have a great weekend. God bless. Thank you all, guys. I got to go.
See ya.
Bye.